Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Yovanov. As you know, we love discovering and promoting new musicals on the station. And one of the best places to discover a new show before anyone else, outside, of course, the radio station, is at a fringe festival. So today we're going to be speaking with the producing executive director of the St. Louis Fringe Festival. Let's welcome to the show Matthew R Kerns. Matthew, how you doing?
Hello, hello. I'm good,
All
thank
right.
you. How are you?
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Thank you for
It's like
coming on.
70 degrees and sunny today here, so what's to be wrong?
And that's the end of the show because I'm jealous. So I don't know what it is. It's probably around 32, maybe. I don't even know anymore. So
Yikes.
yeah. So that's zero for us Celsius people, just for the rest of the UK and Canada listening and anywhere else in the world, I guess. But yeah, we've already turned this into a weather show rather than about musical theater. But
The best art gets made in the coldest cities.
yeah, because what else is there to do, right? Yeah,
You got to be inside.
yeah, it's true. How much art?
Minneapolis, Chicago.
How
Yeah,
much art gets done in Miami then?
it's all outdoor theater there.
Oh, true. Good point. So they have that other nice advantage of
Yeah.
different. Okay, cool. All right, now that we've digressed into something completely different, let's get to know you a little bit more,
Okay.
Matt. Let's get to know. I want to know who Matt is in 30 seconds. Give us your 30-second bio.
Sure. So in 30 seconds, I can say I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Pretty standard, humble beginnings. Middle class family. My dad was a truck driver. My mother worked for what I called a plumbing dynasty. My grandfather was a very famous plumber with a very famous plumbing parts store, and my mother worked as a office manager at a different plumber's office. So plumbing dynasty, and I said, "Hey, I think I got to be an artist." And they both scratched their heads and went, "We don't understand what that means." And I went to undergrad to get a BFA in theater, and then I moved to Chicago and spent many years there in the storefront theater scene. I was the chair of the theater department at a place called the Chicago Academy for the Arts for almost a decade. And then I left and went to California and studied and taught more out there and did some film and some television. And then I discovered along the way experimental theater, fell in love with it, and moved to Boulder, Colorado to attend Naropa University and get an MFA in contemporary theater performance, which led me all the way back home many years later to St. Louis, where I live with my husband and my now two dogs and my cat. And I run the St. Louis Fringe Festival, which is proudly a place where we develop empty stages and we nurture independent artists to express themselves through any discipline that they so desire. And that includes a number of artists who have come to us with new musicals and musicals that are in treatment.
Awesome. And I can't wait to delve into that. But I want to take it a little back again. I want to know a little bit more about you. Were you
Sure.
always into theater and musical theater growing up, or is that something you discovered a little bit later in your life?
Fifth grade, I got cast as the lead in the school play,
Mhm.
the Christmas pageant, and we pushed together plastic staging and had a paper backdrop and had floodlights and it smelled like old lasagna. And and I came out in this scarf and I had choreography to throw my scarf back across my neck and flip open my letter to Santa and read it. And in that moment of time, I went, "This is my life. I want to do this." And it sounds so cliche, but it's absolutely the truth. And I never stopped wanting to do that. Lots of drama in high school. I was really immersed in it. I had a really great drama teacher who was a very inspirational man. And then it just went from there. But yes, I 100% it's interesting because people are like, "Oh, it's a calling." It really is a calling. And if it's in, I always like to feel like if it's in your bones, God help you because it's never getting out and it's the craziest business you'll ever work in.
Yeah.
But I also think I wouldn't want my life to be anything else because it has been such a gift and a joy and a privilege to live my life as an artist and to do the many, many things I have done because I am an artist and I identify that way.
Very nice. Yeah. Being it's something that you just feel, right from the beginning. Even though sometimes you feel you might do something else, but it draws you back. It's like a magnet, right? You've
And
done
I've
it.
learned in doing other things, because I do. I have had a very varied career. And what I've learned from it is everything that I learned and I do in the art community and for the art community transfers into every other experience that I've had, including work for when I work for non-arts related organizations. All of my arts training is amazing in training other people, in training leaders, in really getting people to understand and see each other authentically and to
It
tell their stories.
Yeah, I don't know why arts isn't more predominant in schooling and teaching
Oh,
because
it burns me up. It is one of the things that makes me so angry about our culture is that we disregard the arts. And I just heard a story on NPR yesterday where this person who was being interviewed said, and it's true, the arts are generally the first thing to be cut in schools.
yeah,
And it is so frustrating because it is so important for young people to have a foundation in the arts because it is the fabric of our lives.
yeah. My lady friend will hate me saying this, but how often are you going to use the Pythagorean theorem, right? She's a math and science teacher, right? So, but how often are you going to actually have to talk to another human being, right? It's I don't know. I don't understand. I just will never understand.
Yeah, but if you think about math, the answer is it comes back to music.
Mhm.
What is music but counting? It's constant counting and constant reading of another language. If you are look at the visual arts definitely deal in math, especially when you're looking at fashion. What does fashion do? Fashion deals with math all the time and geometry. So it all has a foundation in
Yeah,
the artistic development of people. And to become a whole person, in my personal belief, you have to have an art-centric childhood.
agreed. Totally agreed. So let's talk about the St. Louis Fringe Festival. Um,
Okay.
how did you get involved with it?
So so our name is St. Lou Fringe. So we are the festival here. We're a decade old, which I'm really proud of because it's hard to be a small arts organization and survive for a decade.
Mhm.
And with our big birthday, it's going to be a big year for us. I came to it 5 years ago as the leader. Now, before that, 2 years before, I had finished a project that's called the Gay Fantasia. And the Gay Fantasia is a late night immersive event that takes place in the middle of the night to have people experience what it was like to be a homosexual man in the height and the beginnings of the HIV/AIDS crisis. So you have to go into this event that's happening. Essentially, you walk into a disco, and that's how it starts. And everybody is immersed together, for lack of a better word. The artists are there and they're performing, but they're also just playing. They're dancing to disco music,
Yeah.
and the smoke is so thick in these rooms, and it all comes down to the beginning, the beginning days of HIV and the end of the Harvey Milk era, right? So when I made the Gay Fantasia, I wanted to take it out because it was met with some success, and I was pleased about that and thought that it was worthwhile to show some other people and get some more information about it. The best place to get information about anything is a fringe festival because the stage is yours and you have audiences who are interested in seeing something experimental or experiencing it in this case, because it wasn't just a see, it was a you're in it. And so the disco music thumping, it got accepted into the St. Louis Fringe Festival as a participant. And it got put into, if you don't know anything about fringe festivals, the venue can be anything from a gorgeous, beautiful theater to a back alley somewhere in the middle of God only knows where. And you just have to be willing to accept and celebrate whatever's handed to you. And my venue was a bar, a dirty, dirty, gross bar where I had to be on the floor as part of this. And I was like, you know what? Gotta make it happen. So we tweaked the piece to really be in the bar, and you also get a random time slot. So I couldn't, when the show historically runs starting at midnight, and people have always asked me like, why do you have to do this so late? I'm tired, I want to go home. And I said, so yeah, imagine what that was like for these men back in the day when they had to go out at midnight and start their day, because it was the only time that they could be their authentic selves, is in the middle of the night. And when that was done, then the drag balls came in and they were at like 4 a.m. And so you have all of this history entrenched in it. And the smoke, I mentioned the smoky room because one of the things I learned is the smoke in the bars was so thick, and that was on purpose, because then they couldn't see who you really were. They couldn't see you up close, and you couldn't be identified. So you weren't fired from your job or outed in some way. Everything was designed. The red lights were all designed to protect the community that was coming in to be themselves in the middle of the night. So I got accepted into the Fringe. I won that year. I was named the first ever Fringe Meister. Oh my goodness.
Fringe Meister?
That's our term. That's what we do. We are the Fringe Meister.
Okay.
You get a hat, you get bragging rights, and you get a journal that you're expected to write in, and it is not yours. You have to give it back and pass it on to the next Fringe Meister.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I loved it, and I learned so much, and I saw so much that year of other people's works. People like the amazing Siobhan O'Loughlin, who's a performance artist here in the States, and she did a piece that made her world famous called Broken Bone Bathtub. And Broken Bone Bathtub is the story of Siobhan breaking her arm in a bike accident in New York and having it casted. And she was afraid that she would screw her cast up by taking a shower. So she started asking her friends who had bathtubs if she could use them. And she did this for however long it took. And what she discovered is a show. And the show turned into her using people's bathtubs all over the globe and inviting people into the bath while she was there. And she's in the soapy water, and the people are sitting on either chairs, or some sat on the toilet, or some, like, you name it, they sat on it. And Siobhan tells this story of her breaking her arm and what this led to and what she thought about while this all was happening. And she stops in the middle of it and brilliantly asks the audience. She'll say something like, oh, I was feeling really vulnerable at this point. Have any of you ever had a moment where you feel vulnerable? And the audience of, I don't know, 10 or 4 people, whatever it is, depending upon the size of the bathroom, suddenly start this conversation with Siobhan. And an hour later, they're all like weeping best friends because it's a really beautiful and powerful experience. So I got to meet artists like that, and I felt really excited about the possibility of experimental work, more than I ever had before. And 2 years later, I had moved back to St. Louis for family reasons. And I was called because I was asked to, by the previous executive director, if I could come and perform at a benefit for them. And I was like, yeah, sure, I would love to. So I came, I performed, and while I was there, one of the staff at the time said, you know, they're leaving, and you should apply for this job. And I kind of went, oh, I guess I've never thought about that. Yeah. Yes, I have the ability to, I've done a lot of producing. I've done a lot of leading. I've been a classroom teacher in the arts. So I have all of this experience of being in leadership, and I never thought about being the leader of an organization, although I always wanted to. And so I interviewed for it, and here I am 5 years later. And I couldn't be happier. It's one of the biggest gifts of my life is to be the leader of the St. Louis Fringe.
The Fringe Festival is so exciting. It's just so exciting to be a part of, and just because you never know what you're going to get. You're going to get the entire spectrum of quality and everything, right? And you obviously know better than anybody, right?
I like to say that some works are more polished than others.
Yes.
Some can come to us a little rough. And I wanna just celebrate that, because there is no other entity that I know of that lets you have the space to do this.
Yeah. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with falling on your face, because you're going to stand up and learn to not do that again, right? And
yep.
that I love the fact of the Fringe. You're going to
or get the feedback that you're looking for, which is what some of our people come for. They're like, look, I have this show and I need information. I need to know what an audience that isn't my friends or isn't, my classmates or whatever it is, your community of people that know you. I need to know what somebody who doesn't know me at all thinks about this piece of work, so I can take it further.
I know, it's crazy. So let me ask you, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of them, as we're talking about this, of doing a Fringe festival? Not just musicals, but just in general.
I think the advantages are, like I said, there's no other entity in the universe that I'm aware of that will give you a blank stage and say, here you go, thank you, hope what you make is interesting. That is powerful, because in every other entity there's an artistic director, there are artistic associates, there are other voices in the room, there are sponsors, there are people in the room saying, no, you can't say that, no, this has to be shaped this way, no, that's not my aesthetic, no, that's not the aesthetic of this theater, no, no, no. They end up shaping your work. The Fringe does not do that. No Fringe does that. The only time that St. Louis Fringe would step in and knowingly try to tell you that your work is not okay is if it crosses the line into hate speech or some kind of divisiveness. You know, we're not about that. We're about equity for all, and so we fortunately have never had that issue, and we've had topics that run the gamut. So we've had lots of difficult topics. We've had a woman who came in and wrote a show because she was unable to have a baby. And it was very painful. And the way that this artist decided to take to that story that was very devastating for her life is to write a piece of work that incorporated 2 vagina sock puppets. And they talked throughout the whole thing and helped her through this journey, which was painful and sad and funny because she found a way to infuse humor into it. And then what she did is, before she got here, because she was a national artist, she reached out to the infertility communities in this region and said, this is who I am, this is my story, and I'd love for you to come and see it. And they did. And so many of them were weeping and saying, laughing with her and crying with her. And that's the power of the arts right there, and the power of the Fringe. The disadvantages, you're traveling, so that's hard. Well, I mean, not right now, but in general, in the before time. Yeah. So I like to call it the before time. Yeah. You're traveling, so that's hard. You're trying to get a cast to travel. You're trying to get the funds to travel. You're probably not making a ton of money at any Fringe festival. Mm-hmm. So if you're in it for the money, you're in it for the wrong reason. I always tell people. Those are probably the downsides, but I always feel like the up outweigh the down, because the up are, not only do you get connection to the community, you get exposure for your work and yourself as an artist, and you get collaboration. You collaborate with the festival, you collaborate with other artists who are in the festival, you collaborate with people that you're working with in your particular piece, and you collaborate with the circuit of festivals across the world. It's pretty exciting.
It is. I missed. Unfortunately, I missed the last 2 Fringe festivals in Toronto for whatever reason. I was away or doing something, and I regretted them because so much good stuff I missed. So as a show wanting to go into a festival, you know, what are the pitfalls that they should have tried to avoid? Is there any?
So yes, of course, there are big pitfalls. Here they are. Whatever your dream of this show and what it's supposed to look like, throw that out the window, because it's not going to look that way. And once it doesn't look that way, start being ready to craft the way it is going to look and be proud of it. So the theater's never going to look like what you think it's going to look like, even though you have every spec in the land. Yeah. It's not going to sound the way you think it's going to sound until you're in the room. And people who come in with a myriad of props and set pieces and this and that and the other that we expect in traditional theater forms, you just end up scrapping so much of it, because you have 10 minutes to set up, your show starts, and you have 10 minutes to get out. So it's either, and I've seen it done. I'm going to tell you, I have seen people come in with giant sets and casts of 20, and they will put a set together in 10 minutes. Yeah. It is, that in itself is worth watching. But it's the thing that I think is the biggest misconception is that these are fully realized productions. They are simple elegance. And the more simple elegance and simple magic you can make, the stronger your piece is going to show at a Fringe festival.
Can you think of any pitfalls specific to, say, a musical? Because going into as a play, it's probably a little bit different than, because you got the singing, you got the acoustics, you've got the instruments. Mm-hmm. Is there any pitfalls that a musical specific has to worry about?
I think so. I think you have to be mindful of the choreography, because you have to think about spacing. I think you need to be mindful of the idea of, like, I'm going to have a full orchestra, because you're not. Like, you're just not. And it's smarter to have a piano and a drum kit, have a 3-piece and celebrate that. And it's easier. So let's look at like simple is better. That's what I'm going to say. And with musicals, it really comes that way. The other part of musicals is you have to understand the need to pare it down. You're not going to fit a 2-hour musical into a 50-minute slot, no matter what you do. So what are you here doing? If you're here doing, the best thing you can do is pare it down and make 50 minutes of the show that you want to see here. Test those songs. Are you testing the 11 o'clock number? That's really important. I probably wouldn't cut that out, but I probably would cut out the big Act 2 opening dance number that doesn't have anything to do with the core of the show. You can test that when you go to some bigger rep venue. But here you want to get the big hooks, and you want to make sure that those are what people are seeing. They're getting the crux of the story. They're getting the sound and the vibe and the flavor of the show, and they're getting to see what it is you think this story, like the lens through which you're telling the story through. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. You talked about choreography, and this is an interesting question. How soon do you find out what venue you're at so you can scout it and go, oh man, that's not going to work for my choreography or my blocking or whatever?
Yeah, we have a lot of dance that comes to the festival too. So movement is a real thing, and if you're pulled out of the lottery, and you're a musical or you're a dance company, we want to make sure that you're in a space that's going to protect your joints. It's going to protect your feet. We're not going to put you outdoors on the concrete. But the truth is, this year we are, because we're just doing outdoor venues this year.
Yeah.
So you have to be prepared in that regard. You get it about, let's see, May. So you get it about 2 months in advance.
Okay.
You get your venue assignment.
Oh, okay. So then you can go scout it out and go, okay, this works, that. And,
yeah. If you
had all that time,
and if you're in a different place,
yeah,
good luck.
Oh, true. Yeah.
You could look online for photos and videos of other people doing work in those spaces.
But
our spaces are beautiful. We are very fortunate to be part of the Kranzberg Arts Foundation. And the Kranzberg Arts Foundation has a number of theaters that they've built in our arts district that are specifically for local use. And as a resident, we use all of the spaces during our time, during the festival time.
Nice. So how many theaters do you have? I guess for the Fringe, actual spaces, and then I guess
3. I'm counting right now. I'm going like running around the district in my mind. I want to say that there's 8 to 10 theaters of all different shapes and sizes. Okay. And that doesn't count the outdoor spaces. So yeah, 8 to 10. And then how many do we use? We usually use about 7 to 10. This year we're using 3. We're using the circus tent with the walls taken off. Mm-hmm. And we're using the Strauss Park, which is a venue here that has a stage on it, an outdoor stage. And then the Kranzberg Arts Foundation has another venue at the Grandel that they've built a patio stage outside that we'll use. And then everything else will be on the virtual platform.
Okay, nice. And how many seats are in these? So if you are in St. Louis and you want to go see the Fringe,
so our seats range from, so the venues across the Kranzberg Arts Foundation range from 25 in the art gallery when we do it there, all the way to 500 at the Grandel.
Okay.
So, and with COVID times, there's going to be very specific numbers, and we're very fortunate because the gang at Kranzberg have worked really hard with the Missouri Arts Council to really work on COVID safe performing arts and performing arts venues and safe reopening. So we have a lot of mandates in place that are working to help us restore the art of gathering.
Well, congratulations on doing that. We are dealing with some weird, unprecedented for our lifetime time.
We are. It's the most unprecedented time that any of us will ever know in our life. And I feel like it's fair for me to say we in St. Louis are very lucky to have the Grand Center Arts District, and for everything that places like the Missouri Arts Council and the Regional Arts Commission and the Kranzberg Arts Foundation and I'm sure I'm missing people and organizations are doing to make our arts and culture a beautiful place to live, work, and play here in St. Louis.
Nice. So, so now a show has gotten into the Fringe. It's
Mm-hmm.
got its piece. It's got one of the hardest things is, getting people to see your show. Do you have any, clues that you've seen or you've been able to use for your shows to get the butts in the seats? Because whenever I see the Fringe and I go through it and whenever I see a musical, I know I'm going to go see it. And musicals, have a little bit easier time sometimes, I think, to get butts in the seats just because it is. But what have you found is a good way to advertise and get words out there?
So that's an interesting idea. We at the Fringe have, so at St. Louis Fringe, when I took over, we looked at every Fringe across North America. And we had to decide what kind of Fringe we wanted to be in this next chapter of our life. And I really came to with the board that we wanted to be a hybrid festival because that's what works best for our market. And so what that means is 40% of our festival is programmed, it's curated, and 60% of our festival is pulled out of a fishbowl. And the reason for that decision, instead of being 100% lottery based, somewhere like the Edinburgh is 100% lottery based, Toronto, I believe, is too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The reason for that shift is our market. We need to know that our patrons and our artists are going to be supported and show up, frankly, to see the festival. So we invite artists to come in and do work, artists that are known, artists that are working on specific projects. We scout for larger things like musicals and search those out, so that we have some hooks for the general public to go, oh my gosh, I certainly don't want to miss that opera that's happening. And so they'll come down to see that. And while they're here, it's now time tested. We used to give a free ticket away that the Fringe covered the cost. So we would still pay the artist, but we would just eat the cost. If you were here, you can go see this now for free on us, but that artist is still getting paid because that's part of our core mission. And that would help build their audience, which is also part of our core mission, is to get that young new artist with their experimental musical, some butts in seats, and get people knowing their work and trying their work out. We don't have to give tickets away now because we have an audience base that comes to the Fringe and goes, I'm coming to see that, and I'm also going to see this, this, and this while I'm here. And that's how it really starts. As far as the way we market it, we have a core of media partners that we work with, and we make sure that we tell the story to each of those venues that's appropriate for. So like if you're a musical, we probably are going to put you on this station. If you're experimental this, we're going to put you here because we want to speak to the audience that we know that those stations, those media people have. And so we try to tell the story that way. And then we help you tell the rest of the story. We do a social media campaign. We help you do a social media campaign because that's big. Yeah. Instagram is huge. Twitter is actually surprisingly large. Facebook, okay. It's not great, but Twitter and Insta, gold. And now TikTok.
I know.
TikTok. I mean, me and the 14-year-olds are on TikTok watching videos every day. And it is the most exciting experimental place for art that has come in a long time. Yeah. That's it.
That's funny.
Donald Trump was like, I'm going to shut down TikTok. I'm like, no, you're not. The 14-year-olds are way ahead of you.
No, I don't know what he was thinking, but well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. Well,
thank goodness.
Yeah, hopefully.
At least for this moment.
For at least this interview, we don't have to worry about it.
Only for now.
Well, speaking of singing in a musical, you've been in charge of it for 5 years now. So you have seen obviously some musicals come through there, and is there any of them that stuck out for you, or have gone on to bigger things?
So one of them has gone on to bigger things. Some of them have stuck out. Last year we had a musical called Pencil the Date, and these two young artists wrote this musical about the experience of getting ready to go to the prom, right? So we all just saw the prom, the musical, and then they turned it into a movie, right? And that was great. This is about the whole like set of kids, high school kids, getting ready to go to the prom, going to the prom, and the after effects of the prom. I thought it's so fascinating and it's so interesting because it's certainly different than when I went to the prom.
Yeah.
The issues that they're wrestling with now, but what is synonymous are love stories are still the same. They still play out the same way. You know, some of those big life problems, those high level problems that we all experience in our youth are there. And I think that the musical is powerful. The songs are poppy. They feel a little like 80s music to me, which is like my dream come true because I was a tween in the 80s. and I love it. I love that these two folks have come along and they're like, I love this style of music and we're going to write a show about it. And they did it. And it's really good. It's really good. And it's really fun. Nice. We had a musical about Chekhov. We had a Chekhov based musical. The Three Sisters turned into a musical.
Not Star Trek Chekhov.
Not that one.
Though now I may have to write that. But go on.
Yeah, there you go. No, Anton Chekhov.
Okay.
So the Three Sisters turned into a musical. We had another one. We've had two because we also had Uncle Vanya turned into a musical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. People like to turn Chekhov into musicals. And very different, very interesting. That one had large, like, epic musical theater moments, right? It was like the Andrew Lloyd Webber of Chekhov. Yeah. There was so many grand, like, musical moments and grand choreography moments in this, like, spectacular that was really amazing. And the thing about the St. Louis Fringe that's curious to us, they had the time to do it. Because if you are a headline act, if we've dubbed you a headline act, you get a full-length show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a full 2-act musical, Vanya. Yeah. And it was really cool. I mean, I thought it was great. The music was really, really interesting. And the acting was solid. And the thing that they did that I really liked is they were clever. They're like, look, I need this big house because Chekhov has his big houses, right? They couldn't afford that, nor could they do it in the time allotted, right? They had to share that stage, even as a headline act. And so what they did instead is they took spike tape of different colors, and they made the house on the floor. They just spec'd it out like it's a rehearsal room. Threw the furniture in there, took all the drapes. They turned the stage drapes into like window drapes. They like windows in between, and there was a cyc in the background that they lit to make it look like light was coming through. And it was beautiful.
Would necessity is the mother of invention, right? Whatever,
oh my gosh,
you figure it out.
Totally. My favorite kind of theater is when you have 2 nickels in your pocket and some lint, and you have to go be creative. Yeah. We can all throw money at things, and money will fix it and make it fancy, right? Yeah. Meanwhile, if you don't have that option, your brain is forced to flex its creative muscle and figure out how to tell the story that you want to tell without all the bells and whistles that we've come to know. I always liken the moment the projector came into the theater scene where it was like, I'm going to have a projection. And now you can't get through a tech without there being 400 projections and 6 projectors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have this firm belief now that after post-pandemic, we're going to see like big scale shows where the star is actually virtual and they're on a screen and they're in another city. They're back in New York.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah, I've always worried that one day when I'm directing a show, I'm going to have an actual budget and I'm not going to know what to do with that money because like they're gonna like, oh, you could do this, and I'm like, but I
mean, don't get me wrong. When I've had budgets, and I've had shows where I've had budgets, there are snow machines, and there's like, you name it, it happens. I'm like, all right, we're doing this. Can I have lasers?
So you mentioned that there might have been a musical that we might know that came out of this St. Louis. Was that one of those, or?
I think if any of them was going to come out, it would be either Pencil the Date or Vanya.
Cool. Well, we'll
Yeah.
all have to look for those.
Vanya came from California, and Pencil the Date came from Texas.
Nice.
Hmm.
So, as we all know, there's been a pandemic for the last year.
Yeah.
How did you get around, and what did you do with the St. Louis Fringe last year? To obviously we all can't be together in a theater. How'd you get around that? What'd you do?
So we didn't have answers at the beginning,
Mhm.
and nobody did, not just us. Meanwhile, we came together, the board and I, and said, okay, this is happening. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I said in an interview that I did earlier this week, Americans had a disbelief that this could happen to us. We were just in disbelief about it. We're like, well, SARS happened. We're fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about us. Oh, that's just, okay. It's just going to happen in New York. Okay. It's just going to happen in California. Oh, it's just. And then there were 2 cases here in Missouri. And then there were 10 cases here. And now there are thousands.
Yeah.
And so it's a moment of time where I think we as a country can now understand we are not immune to situations like this.
Mhm.
And we have to be better prepared to take care of ourselves, take care of each other, and take care of the arts. And when the arts shut down, when Broadway shut down, that was a defining moment. It was like, okay. So we had 6 plans to have the festival because we weren't sure how and what and this. And we just had to wait it out to see which one was going to happen. I remember 2 of the plans being knocked out when we learned that it was coming through the ventilation. When we learned that it was coming through a restaurant AC unit, and this table that was sitting on this end of the restaurant was infected with COVID, and this side of the restaurant where the air was blowing directly down on this table, all of those people at that table got infected. And it was like, okay, that just changed us. We talked about plastic, like essentially big plastic panels of glass that would separate the stage and the audience. I mean, you name it, and we talked about it. And the final option was just cancel, just not have it. But for me, as a leader who is in charge of a community that gives artistic voice and expression, that wasn't an option for me. We were going to figure something out. And so what we figured out is we figured out this magical thing called Zoom, and suddenly we had to be on it. And I was like, wait, we can do it this way. And so I started doing some research, and I found this festival called the Socially Distancing Festival that this person put together. Have you heard about it?
I'll just say no. I don't think
It was very early on, and it was exactly, I was like, that's it. So we didn't create it. We didn't invent it, but we were the 3rd in the country to execute it. And what this human did, and I can't remember his name, is he came and he solicited work that was all recorded. Yeah. And you could go and you could make a donation, or there was a ticket fee. They would allow you to decide that for yourself. And there would be a pre-recorded work that you could watch. What we did to modify that, because all of our artists don't work that way and they all didn't want to do recorded opportunities, we made everybody come to the space together as an audience. And even if it was a recorded piece, we watched it together. And some people wanted microphones on but cameras off so they could hear the audience responding. So they felt that energy of applause, and they felt that energy of laughter. And some people wanted webinar style, where they couldn't see or hear the audience, but they were performing live. And we had those who wanted a meeting style and cameras on, because their shows were interactive, and the show wouldn't work unless the audience was there and participating. Yeah. And so we decided to do it that way. And that's what we did. We did an entire virtual show. And once we had made that decision, then I started going and really like looking at different things. And I think it was the New York Fringe. No, actually, he was in New York, but I think it was it Philly? I can't remember. But there was a New York artist who was in his basement apartment in the Village performing this show. It's a one-man show. He's a super cool guy. This one-man show about his musical Suddenly Seeking Susan.
I interviewed him.
Oh, you know him? Yeah.
Yes.
Him. What's his name? I can't remember.
Right. Oh, he's gonna kill me. I can't even remember offhand. Yes,
We
I
were
know him.
totally so Sean and I, my husband, were totally taken by him. We were like, "What are we watching? What
Yeah.
is happening?" And my friend Danielle came, and my friend Elizabeth from California came, and we're all sitting in this audience together watching the show, which is a beautiful pandemic like silver lining.
Yeah.
You can be together in a theater experience with your family and friends from all over the country or world. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we watched this show, and it was so fun and so different and so I mean, it was a little rough, let's not lie.
Yeah.
But it was rough because at this point you have to look at it as it's a pioneering effort. None of us knew what the hell we were doing, and this guy even said the same thing. He's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Okay, that's what he said. He was like, it's over, I don't know how to make you applaud.
I know.
Yeah, that's it. And so we just started learning and researching and helping our artists shape their shows for this festival. And that's how we did it. And in our 9th year, which is what that was, it was the biggest lift that we've ever done. It was a very heavy lift because everything had to be retooled. The box office, the way you bought tickets, all of the front of house had to be redone. All of the house had to be redone, literally. And then all of the post show and the other festival opportunities had to be redone too.
Yeah.
And it was really, really challenging, but the most rewarding work that I, as the leader, have ever been a part of. Because it did our mission. I mean, if I've ever learned the understanding of live your mission, it was in 2020.
Well, congratulations on getting that up and running.
Thank you.
Because it's, you're basically starting again, right? You're taking
From scratch.
Yeah.
And it was not just me. It
Yeah.
literally takes a village.
Yeah.
And beyond the village of our own team and our own artists, it took the village of the art community at large to go, okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, I'm going to do this. All right, let me think about this. So that Suddenly Susan guy, he helped us by showing us the way. Just this past holiday season, I created an 8-minute solo performance of A Christmas Carol that I put out to the world. And I watched another one that was a shadow puppet retelling of the entire story in long form. It was beautiful. And they showed afterwards how they did it. They were in a giant warehouse. So I worked with one filmmaker. He and I were way far apart, and he just did lots of close-ups, and that's how we made the piece. They were in a big warehouse in Champaign-Urbana, which is, I think, where they are, which is in Illinois. And they showed the band was way in one side. The puppeteers were in the other side. The human who was on the set and was kind of narrating the story and moving it along was on the other side of this giant warehouse. So they weren't anywhere near each other. And they were doing all the social distancing. They were washing their hands, and they were getting COVID tests before they came in every day. It's fascinating.
This pandemic, arts, you can't kill the arts. It doesn't matter, whether it's this pandemic or the Spanish flu or the Black Plague or war, feast, famine, doesn't matter. The arts find a way.
We've been around since the shamans and the campfire. We're not going anywhere.
I know.
It's just gonna keep changing. Yeah. And that's what it's supposed to do. Artists comment on the times that they live in. This is the time we're living in. So it makes perfect sense that the art community would lean in and start telling stories of this time and in the way that this time will allow us to tell stories.
Yep. We've just had to adapt and figure it out. And that's what
we always do.
And who are the best to do it but the artists?
Every time. The arts community is the easiest community to go, okay, I'll lean into that. Sure, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll go figure it out.
Exactly.
And it's for the better. I mean, think about it. Where there is a void in culture right now, we've had so many artists come forward and be able to bring new work, musical, play, opera, dance, whatever, to a stage that can come into your home and you can safely experience the arts. That's really powerful stuff. And that's love of craft and love of form and discipline and love of storytelling and love of your fellow man who you are wanting to make sure is okay and still having the culture that they need to live a full, rich life.
It's a great way to end it. That's a perfect thing to say. So tell us, when is the Fringe Festival, and how
Ah,
can people get to know more about it?
well, you can still submit an application if you're interested in being in the festival this year at stlouisfringe.com. And you can learn more at the same place. And our festival is in August. And in July, we are doing an event called 5/5, which is a fundraiser we're doing. What
Mhm.
we do is we invite 5 artists to come together to make one story and tell a chapter of it. So this year we're taking Alice in Wonderland and we're making an immersive event. And we've hired a mural painter and we've hired a chalk artist and we've hired a musician and we've hired a couple of actors as well. And we are making an experience unlike anyone else, that's for sure.
Nice.
And I am so thrilled about it and so excited about all the potential that this year's festival has, because we're going to have a little bit of outdoor stuff and we're going to have some more virtual platform, and we're getting steps and steps closer to the art of gathering.
Well, you let me know. You send me any information you want, share it on our social media, and we will let people know
I
when
will.
it is and
Thank you
how to
for
go see
having
this.
me. What a
Oh, no,
pleasure.
no problem. Hey, we all have to support each other in this community, because if we don't, who's going to, right?
That's right.
We don't take care of each other. All right. Well, before we end the interview, I always ask 3 questions of
Oh,
my guests.
okay.
There's no right or wrong answer, but it'll tell us a little bit more about who you are. All right. So the first question is, what creator or team within the musical theater world has had a great influence on you? Now, this could be a composer, a lyricist, director, producer, actor, stage manager. Could be famous, non-famous, like a teacher. Who in the musical theater world has had an influence on you?
Stephen Sondheim and Bernadette Peters.
Mm, can't go wrong with those answers.
Nope. Perfect. Perfect.
Anything in
And
particular about either of them?
I think Stephen Sondheim tells stories that feel like lives lived. They're grand on some level, but you see the true tragic flaws of humanity in Sondheim's work. And it's always been so beautiful to me, because I feel like when you open your heart and show that pain and you show that vulnerability, it is the most emotionally exhausting experience that one can have. And you walk out of the theater invigorated and drained at the same time. And if you look at things like Company is that journey of Bobby that you feel so bad for all of these people who chose to get married.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's a strange like speck of optimism in it. And you're like, okay, wow, it's very thoughtful work. And Bernadette, because I think her voice is amazing, but I also think her body of work and the choices that she's chosen through the years to roles she's either originated or taken on have been just spectacular. I really love her career.
Perfect
I'm
answer.
jealous. Maybe I won her career. That could be
Who
true.
wouldn't want her career?
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
But one of my favorite things she did was Mac and Mabel.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
it's the most beautiful work. It's beautiful. And there's a great concert of night of hers at Carnegie Hall. If you've never heard it, you should go out and listen to it, because it's really, really great. And it's a retrospective of her work and a lot of her singing Sondheim, because to me, she was one of Sondheim's muses for sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great answers. 1 point. Perfect. Okay. Question number 2. If I had a leaky faucet or needed a toilet change, could I call on you and you'd be able to do it with all your plumbing background?
Sure. What I do is probably be in touch with my mother, who would send an actual plumber, or call
so,
my husband.
so none of it rubbed off on you over all the time.
I think what rubbed off on me between a truck driver and the plumbing dynasty is the Midwestern work ethic.
Okay.
I am a workhorse and
Mhm.
I love work. And I work all the time, because not because I have to, because I want to, and because what I do feels like a labor of love to me. And so Midwestern work ethic is a real thing.
Yeah.
And that's what came from my parents, who were salt of the earth, working people, working class people. Yeah.
So don't call you.
But yeah, if you want to, no, you certainly I did when I was a kid. I was a teenager for a while. I worked in the plumbing shop with my grandfather.
Yeah.
And it's interesting stuff to learn.
Oh, for
I
sure.
mean, it's funny how all those little things fit together and all those little parts make it work. But in the big spectrum of it, no, I wouldn't call me. Unless you want a good reference for somebody who could actually do it right.
Correct answer for number 2.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 3. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater? Which is worse?
Oh, well, that's a really tricky one because sometimes I like it when cell phones are on in the theater. And I've definitely devised work where I'm like, just keep your phone on. It's fine. You know, I had one show that I made and I had 2 seats that I gave away every night and they were called the tweet seat. And you had to be willing to have the spotlight come on you and you had to be willing to tweet about the show during it.
Nice.
Yeah, the tweet seats. Take that, friends. Take it and use it. And it was a musical. I was directing Seussical, the musical, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really?
And I was like, yeah, I would like you to the tweet seats. And so generally I want them off because I think they pull focus.
Yeah.
That's what they're designed to do. They're instruments meant to divert our attention. And it pulls the focus of everybody in the room when our phones light up. So it's probably better that they're off. Food in the theater, I mean, I don't really care. If you unwrap it, it's fine. As long as it's not super loud. You're not eating like, I don't know, what's the loudest food out there? I know I'm like, yeah, potato chips are a perfect example. Yeah. Don't eat potato chips in the theater because that's rude. But if you want like a peanut butter cup, they're quiet. Eat away. So I guess I want to say no cell phones, but probably quiet food only. And it's funny, at the Steppenwolf, they used to, when I lived in Chicago, it used to like have a whole pre-show message and it would be like, and unwrap your candy now.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, you built the cell phones into your show, so that one doesn't count really. Because
I know it's a total cheater move, but I have a friend who had a coffee shop in the, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s, and Starbucks was coming along, and they were just killing her business. And she decided, she made a shirt that said, if you can't beat them, join them. Yeah. She shut her shop down, went and worked for Starbucks, became the vice president of Starbucks for a while. And and was like, this is the way you do it. We're not going to beat cell phones. No. That's just not going to happen. So how do you get people to either put them away for a very long, what's a long period of time in cell phone life? 2 hours, 2.5 hours is a long time to not look at your phone. Or bring it into the world and make it just an okay thing to do.
Okay. I would have accepted neither. we can do away with both of them. But I agree with you.
I always want to leave space. What if you want to do it? So wait, there was a show at the Goodman that Rick Bayless did, the chef, right? Yeah. And Rick Bayless did a whole show that was about food and eating. And you ate during the performance is what my recollection is, if I'm correct. That there was a whole meal that came with it. And so I would never want to say no to food because then you lose that like an opportunity like that. Yeah,
I agree.
And but if you have never eaten Rick Bayless's food, you should.
Well, at least the actor knew. They knew there was going to be eating in the audience.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was expected. Yeah. Those who are just like listening to people like pop Jolly Ranchers, probably not a great experience. Like that Patti LuPone moment where she screamed at that guy because he was recording. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is anymore because, like I said, you can't beat it, and people are going to do it anyway. So how do you get around it, or how do you just make it okay?
I don't know. At least the virtual world's made it easy. You can eat and talk all you want.
Now you got to worry about like your baby crying or like your dog barking or like your husband coming in and being like, what are we eating for dinner? And you're like, shut up, I'm trying to watch this.
Wait, are we delving a little bit too close to reality there for that question or statement?
I don't have a baby, but I do have dogs and a husband.
And husband
but yeah, it's I think it's the great question of how you bring it in. And maybe now if it's just like dim the phones to the lowest level and turn all sound, including vibration, off, great. Then I think that's a win.
3 great answers for 3 questions. Matt, thank you so much for
Oh
coming
my
on
gosh,
and
it's been
telling
such
us
a
about it.
pleasure. And see, this is a pandemic win because look, you're all the way in Canada and I'm
Yep,
all the way here in the middle of the United States.
exactly. And
And not only did we just get to do this, but we're becoming friends, which I really like.
exactly. And thank you, Matt. I can't wait to learn more about you. If I can head over to the Fringe this summer, there's so many
Yeah.
places I gotta head. I will
Yeah.
try and come by and check it out because
Oh, what a pleasure.
I'm
And
gonna
if
have so
not,
many
you
road
can,
trips.
yeah, you can jump on virtually and check out the work there too.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we have been talking with Matthew R Kerns, the producing executive director of the St. Louis Fringe Festival. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.